Hi, I'm Lol Crawley. I'm the cinematographer on The Brutalist.
You share my reverie. You're more than...
So it's my third collaboration with Brady. Brady asked me to shoot his first feature, The Childhood of a Leader. After that, we shot another movie called Vox Lux. And then when we wrapped on Vox Lux, his wrap gift to me was a book on brutalist architecture, and he said, this is the next one. It's what we hope for in a collaborator. The next movie began like that. We've always shot on film. Obviously, it's a third film together. We definitely have a shorthand and a very good way of working. We have a commonality of ideas. Our tastes sort of align. We looked at a lot of brutalist architecture and how that had been photographed. And one thing that came across was obviously photographing any sort of architecture. Generally, you tend to want to have minimal distortion from the lenses, for example. So you may use sort of rectilinear lenses, which are lenses that correct and mean that you don't get the same sort of distortion when you shoot with wide-angle lenses, things like that. So that kind of, I think, led Brady to the idea of, well, VistaVision, really, which is a large format version, still 35mm stock, but you're shooting like a stills camera, as opposed to pulling the film down vertically in a motion picture camera. It's actually pulling it horizontally across 8 perforations at a time. So you end up with a bigger format. You're not forced to shoot on wider angle lenses for a wider field of view. You know, you can get the same field of view on a longer lens, which is obviously minimizes distortion. That was something that Brady was very keen to do. And also VistaVision was an early format. Hitchcock used VistaVision. They were cinematic processes that kind of competed with television, or were a way of, when television, the advent of television, a way of sort of drawing audiences back to the cinema, you know, more of a spectacle, you know. Given that the movie takes place after the Second World War, through the 50s, 60s, 70s, and ends in 1980, it seemed an obvious choice to use this format, largely for the movie. We also used other formats, some 16mm, some standard 35, and some Digi-Betacam for the end of the movie also. We're going to talk about the sequence when Laszlo Toth takes Harrison Van Buren, his benefactor, to Italy to select the marble that they will use within the institute that Laszlo Toth is building for Van Buren.
This is magic. Thank you.
Laszlo, darling, there will be a big party tonight. I remember how much love and party.
Brady and myself have always shot 35mm. Never been a consideration to shoot the film on anything other than celluloid. We had a range of cameras available to us. We had an Arri 235, which is a small handheld camera, which I used for only one sequence that I remember, which is the beginning of the movie, where Laszlo ascends from the bowels of the ship up into the New York harbor. So I used that, and then a 435, an Arri Cam LT and ST, and obviously the VistaVision and the Digi-Beta. And then we shot on Cooke S4 lenses, which we had shot on previous movies. We keep gravitating back to them despite how much testing we do. We just really love them. And Leica R lenses that we used on the VistaVision also. We chose 250 daylight and 500 tungsten stock, so they're balanced for interior artificial light or exterior daylight. We knew those stocks very well. They're a fantastic starting point in the sense that all of the other color work that's done on top of that is either done through the lighting, through the design, grading of the dailies, and then grading of the final film. I mean, there are certainly sections where, you know, it's motivated by time of day, it's motivated by tone of the story or tone of the scene. Certainly the first scene of the second half of the movie, when Laszlo greets Elizabeth from the train, there's definitely a warmer, more optimistic feel to those. Obviously there's seasonal elements. It takes place over a long period of time. Generally, I tend to sort of, where possible, lean into, like, for example, if we're doing day exterior scenes, I don't tend to overly light the day exteriors. For example, we're filming in autumn and it's supposed to feel like spring or something like this. I'm really trying to override what the natural light is doing. Generally, I tend to lean into what the day is doing. Tonally, there's lots of shifts within the movie. The beginning of the introduction to the quarry is sort of shrouded in mist and mystery as we sort of follow this mysterious character that takes us to the marble.
I remember how much love and party.
A lot of the time in a situation like that, it's about taking light away, so trying to shape it by removing light. Not only is that the way I tend to work with day exteriors, it was also a very difficult environment to work in. It's quite a dangerous environment. It's a working mine. So we had to have quite a small footprint, so we couldn't really bring in generators and things like this. Certainly for the images where they arrive in daylight, it was just purely available light for that. That was also something that wasn't necessarily in the script. It was something as we were driving, as we actually arrived to do the scout, we were like, oh, this is incredible. It's a road cut through the hillside and it has this kind of vaulted arch-like quality to it. I think we just rigged it safely, but inside the car, almost like boxes and straps, and we strapped it down and got the frame and then just drove it through. It's the same with a lot of movies, but specifically like this with Brady, where we're alive to the moment. You have to be open to things offering themselves up and just seeing the opportunity, not just visually, but how that visually ties into the movie, and even, we'd obviously shot the scenes in Budapest, and it felt like a great tie between the two. It felt like it had one camp in the exteriors in Italy, and then we were sort of descending into this catacomb within the mine, There's another sequence of a party scene where Laszlo has this flirtatious dance with this young Italian lady and is being observed voyeuristically by Van Buren. That actually all took place in Budapest, where the majority of the film was shot. It worked seamlessly. It was a catacomb that was vast storage area underneath part of Budapest that was available to us. Now, when Judy Becker, the designer, and Brady found this space, they were like, okay, this is how we want it to feel. Now, obviously, it was a very low light situation. We knew that it was going to be a handheld scene, so I needed to kind of move the camera in a 360 without seeing artificial lighting. There's a cinematographer who I greatly admire, Harris Civides, who sadly is not with us anymore, but he always had this approach of lighting the space and lighting the room. And so what I did was, there was practical lighting already there, and I swapped out just the bulbs, bare incandescent bulbs, with photo floods. If they weren't photo floods, there was certainly a brighter, just to get a shooting stop. We're shooting on lenses that I think, around about sort of T2, so wide open. And then I was also push processing the stock, so it was 500T, shot wide open, wonderful focus pullers, first ACs who are able to kind of keep it all in focus. Brady and I really like to kind of underexpose the stock where possible, certainly when we're shooting period work, because, the Kodak stocks are fantastic, but they can be a little clean and potentially with very rich blacks and feel quite a little modern sometimes. So I'm trying to kind of like distress the film a little bit and make it feel more painterly or more archival in some way. So by underexposing and then push processing, we're actually kind of like forcing the film to do things it doesn't quite want to do chemically. That was the idea of it, more of a sort of impressionistic image, I find once I've lit a space, if I'm working handheld, it's a balance between trying to allow the actors to go where they want, and then where they end up going in dark areas for large amounts of dialogue or whatever it might be. Obviously, these actors are very experienced. I'll gently try to guide and suggest and bring them out of the shadows for certain moments. Sometimes it's obviously very nice if they go into shadow. The rehearsal is that sort of negotiation, as it were. It's a really pivotal moment in the movie. It's kind of an example of the most brutal behavior of one character to another. I also feel that it's a clip that just sort of illustrates many different things in terms of kind of handheld. It's got a few different looks going on. It illustrates the VistaVision beautifully and why we use the VistaVision. There's a fabulous kind of like a very ghastly celebration of these mines in some ways. A lot of the landscape that has been carved away. VistaVision was an incredible format for capturing that. Once you finish shooting the movie, it's a case of then really coming back to the final grade, which was a couple of weeks, and then worked with PhotoChem with Andrew Oren, who was amazing, who basically guided us through, he created the 70mm prints for us. They struck a 70mm print that was in Venice. So I was involved in that as well.